For many people, including me, Naruto creates a wave of nostalgia, not quite like anything else. It's the anime that led me down the anime loophole, and I know it did for many others. However, sometimes I hear people talking bad about the original Naruto, or even telling new viewers that they should just skip to Naruto Shippuden. But this pains me, because to me, part 1 of Naruto is peak Naruto. That's why today, I would like to present the argument that the original Naruto is better than Shippuden. If we think about what the heart and soul of Naruto is, it's the characters. Yeah, sure, the fights are cool and the story's good, but the characters are the reason why we kept coming back to the story. Naruto has a large cast of characters with a wide range of personalities. Every member of the Konoha 11 had their own goals and aspirations, and every viewer had a character that they could relate to. With one of the most iconic tournament arcs of all time being the Chunin exams, Naruto was able to instantly establish new characters such as Rock Lee, Neji, Shikamaru, and Gaara. And this was not only in their combat abilities, but also in their unique personalities. For example, when Shikamaru forfeited against Temari in the Chunin exams, it showcased his laid-back personality much more than if he would have just won the fight. Along with Shikamaru, Rock Lee was another one of my personal favorite characters. And to a younger me, his journey was utterly inspiring. Rock Lee's fights with Gaara and Kiba were some of the best choreographed and most hype battles, in not just Naruto, but all of anime. It was the type of fight that made you just want to go and punch something. However, sadly, Rock Lee experienced an extremely significant decrease in screen time during Naruto Shippuden, having only one 1v1 fight during all 500 episodes of Shippuden. To make things worse, this fight wasn't even against an enemy, it was against himself, and was arguably one of the worst fights in all of Naruto. And it wasn't just Rock Lee who lost his shine, but almost every secondary character, with about 70% of them having less screen time than Naruto's swing. Yeah, that one, the one in basically every one of Naruto's taught no jutsu flashbacks. So what happened? Why were these characters that had been so intriguing and unique from the start losing their place in the story? Well, to answer that question, we need to take a look at Naruto's fights. In part 1 of Naruto, the fights had a certain intimacy that was unlike almost any other shonen at the time. Instead of being large-scale contests to power like in other shonen such as Dragon Ball Z, the fights were small-scale contests of strategy and skill that kept the viewer on the edge of their seat. The stakes were also small, but they were things we cared about, because we cared about the characters. If we look at the aforementioned Shikamaru and Temari fight, we can see this in practice. Shikamaru doesn't have a necessarily powerful ability, and the fact that he can't just send a power blast towards someone and win. His ability is limited by the shadows around him, so he's forced to think strategically at all times. Along with this, he's never at an advantage or disadvantage towards someone because of his raw power. During his battle with Temari, he used the battlefield to his advantage, with every move being carefully planned out. Using things like the forest, his jacket, and even the hole left from the last match, he's able to basically win the battle, or at least he won in our hearts. Almost every fight in part 1 of Naruto was similar to this, taking a tactical approach to battle in order to create intrigue and engagement with the audience. And if we look at the stakes set up, they're small. Whoever wins gets to possibly become a Chunin. But we care about this, because we care about Shikamaru and want him to progress. With the way shonen stories are set up, the characters have to progress and become stronger over time in order to keep interest with the audience and raise the stakes. This almost always includes introducing a new villain that's more powerful than all the past ones. Power escalation such as this has been a problem for as long as shonen anime has existed, and has proven extremely difficult to overcome in the medium. It may not seem like it's a problem at first, because of course we want to see Naruto get stronger, and to face stronger opponents. That's what makes shonen so hype. However, as the story progressed and Naruto grew stronger, each new villain he faced was also forced to be stronger than the past ones. For example, Madara was stronger than Zabuza, because if Naruto was facing Zabuza after he had already gained his tailed beast mode, he would have destroyed him. This power escalation by both the protagonist and the villains led to a point in the story in which the side characters couldn't contribute anymore because they weren't strong enough. This started to be noticeable after the Pain arc, and only got worse as the War arc progressed. Naruto was dropping atom bombs on people, and all the side characters we had come to love could no longer contribute to the story in a significant way because they weren't powerful enough to fight against the main villains. Instead, they were stuck fighting against literally mindless small fries in the war arc. The stakes were also raised more and more as the story went on. During the pain arc, the stakes were set up so that it was the village that we knew and cared about that was in trouble. However, when the war arc came around and the stakes became the whole world, it just didn't have the personal impact that the destruction of the village did. Sure, we care about the world, but the world is such a large scale that we don't have a personal connection with it. One of Naruto's biggest strengths was in its ability to tie an emotional narrative into the fights, so they weren't just fights, but internal struggles. And so most of the character development in the show came through combat, with characters learning new things about themselves and becoming better through battle. A great example of this can be seen through both of Naruto and Sasuke's Final Valley fights. The stakes were small with only two characters fighting for their ideologies, but the build up to these moments is what makes them so great. These moments were extremely emotionally charged and were the climax of years of development. The punches thrown were backed by the weight of emotion, and matter so much more to us than during other fights. Naruto's fights are some of the greatest in all of anime because they're able to tie in this emotion so well. However, the show focused so much on developing Naruto and Sasuke that in Shippuden, the side characters had very little fights. And they couldn't have any important fights later on in the series because of power escalation leaving them too weak to contribute. So in the end, one of Naruto's greatest strengths became one of its greatest weaknesses, as the characters who were not fighting were not being developed, and this included the majority of the main cast. In the end, after Shippuden, almost the whole main cast aside from Naruto and Sasuke had very poor character development, or were severely underdeveloped. The primary culprit of this being Sakura, who was supposed to be the deuteragonist of the story, but was left in the dust by Naruto and Sasuke, both in development and fighting skill. While we're on the topic of power escalation affecting character development, let's talk about Naruto as a character. Now, this may come as a surprise to you at this point in the video because of how much criticism I've offered, but I actually really like Naruto as a character. I remember as a kid watching part 1 of Naruto on Cartoon Network. I thought the idea that a kid like me could be a ninja was so cool. And then later, when I picked up the series again when I was 14, watching that kid I had related to grow and mature into an adult was inspiring, and even caused me to reflect on my own life. However, although I love Naruto, I have to acknowledge that he didn't serve the role he was supposed to in the story. Naruto was a story about an underdog, and that's probably why so many people connected with it. Nowadays, this may be a very common shonen trope, seen in things like My Hero Academia and Black Clover. But when Naruto came out, this was something new and unique to Naruto. Most of the shonen precursing Naruto featured cool people doing cool things, such as Hunter x Hunter and One Piece. All these shows featured main characters that were in no way losers, and from the start of the story they were shown to have high levels of power. So when Naruto came out, featuring a main character that was weak, and had been given terrible cards in life, people connected with this feeling of weakness. As Naruto battled against the hand he had been given, it taught many people that no matter how much you feel like an underdog, you can always turn things around. This is one of the primary reasons that people kept coming back to Naruto, but in Shippuden, things changed. So I'm just gonna put a spoiler warning right here so that the people who haven't seen it don't get spoiled. You can skip to the time shown on the screen if you don't want to be spoiled. Naruto started off as a boy cursed with a demon inside him that caused him to be ridiculed by those in the village. He really had nothing going for him. His parents were dead, he had no friends, and he was talentless as a shinobi. However, when Shippuden came along, power escalation became increasingly prominent, as the villains were increasingly powerful and the stakes were increasingly raised. In order to create excuses for Naruto becoming more powerful, they started to add more things to his backstory. This included things like the fact that he was the son of the 4th Hokage, the child of prophecy, and the literal reincarnation of a god. In introducing these things into the story, it undermined the whole message of Naruto's journey, because it showed that the whole time, Naruto was not an underdog, but instead, a super powerful being destined to do great things. So now, this relatable character had become not so relatable anymore, and Shippuden's power escalation problem had ruined Naruto's journey. With all of its weak points, Naruto Shippuden does have many strong points. I personally think that pre-war arc Shippuden was amazing, and that the pain arc was the best arc in the series. The power escalation hadn't gotten too bad, and the side characters were actually helping in the battle with the Akatsuki. Sasuke and Itachi's battle had so much emotion, and the plot twist that came after was perfect. The death of a certain someone created a hole in my heart, and Pain's philosophy and backstory still cement him as one of the greatest anime villains of all time in my book. The problem is that this is only about the first 200 episodes of Shippuden, with the last 300 being the dreaded war arc, which, if you didn't know, had terrible pacing, huge escalation, Kaguya, the worst villain in the series, and pulled plot conveniences out of thin air. It speaks volumes about the first half of Shippuden that even with the war arc, many people still argued that it was better than the original. But for me, it just doesn't do it. Naruto Shippuden was so different from Part 1 Naruto that by the end, it was hard to tell that it was even the same show. This was supposed to be a show about a group of kids learning to be ninjas, not one about gods fighting with superpowers. And honestly, watching those kids struggle, grow together, and learn what it means to be a ninja is Naruto. Not watching people dropping giant meteors on each other just for a cool moment. It's what created the magical charm of Part 1, and the lack of it was the downfall of Shippuden. And that's why I think Part 1 of Naruto is better than Shippuden.